The Laura Pendlebury Adventures by Brian Hughes, Episode 2, Time Untied.
Time is like Dawn French's bottom, vast and wibbly-wobbly, with a crack in it. At least, it will have a crack in it by the end of this episode. That's because time is also relative. The sort of relative who turns up drunk at Christmas with a suspicious stain on the gusset of his trousers. The sort of relative that's all tentacles and spittle-infested lips that you seriously don't want to flirt with, as Laura Pendlebury and Polly Jenkins are just finding out.
Polly, help me! I'm being devoured by this shape-shifting bygone. It's like Uncle Benjamin and Aunt Victoria's birthday party all over again.
Why do you keep telling me this stuff when I stood less than 4 feet away?
What? How? Who? Where? When? Which? Why? I'm seeing double.
Burn your lip, cassock, you disgusting Christopher Biggins-like alien form from the planet Castor Oil in the constellation of Hermes Knee. Yes, there's 2 of me now. I'm Laura Pendlebury from the future, with my advanced semi-automatic plasma gun, rather swish. Amazingly inexpensive and available from most good hardware stores and branches of Boots in the year 2313. I've come back to rescue myself so that I can travel into the future again, purchase this amazingly inexpensive advanced semi-automatic plasma gun, and come back, of course, to rescue myself.
Why the convoluted plots? But if Stephen Moffat can get away with this sort of stuff, it works for me.
Bugger! I appear to have killed the earlier version of myself.
No, it's alright. I don't think you're dead. I'm getting a pulse, although it might be more of a repetitive spurt.
Polly, my whole head's exploded. Look, it looks like the toilet at the Taj Mahal restaurant in Fleetwood after a particularly virulent vindaloo. On the plus side, we've successfully destroyed Father Cassock. Mess. On the not-so-plus side, we've probably also created a temporal schism worse than the previously mentioned grandfather paradox. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to have travelled to the future now to purchase this surprisingly inexpensive advanced semi-automatic plasma gun and then rescued myself with a stump for a neck.
Have you got any Stavlon? Perhaps we could stick it back together with wallpaper paste or something.
One of my eyes is smeared up the window, Polly, where it's just been eaten by a snail. Do you honestly think I could rebuild my original head with a tube of Bostik and a smear of snail dung? No, Polly. On the whole, it might be best if we just ignore what's happened and carry on with our adventures.
What was that? Has Eamon Holmes turned up?
It's nothing. Just the fabric of time and space being torn into shreds because it can't cope with what we've just done. Better get back to the twatter, I reckon. A bit quicker than this, perhaps.
Light takes millions of years to reach us from distant galaxies. Therefore, what we're actually witnessing in the heavens happened millions of years ago. Because of this, astrophysicists are now constructing the world's most powerful telescope, so that they can point it towards the Big Bang and study the origins of the universe. The problem with that, of course, is that we, and everything else in the universe, originated in said Big Bang. Therefore, in order to see it, we'd have had to travel faster than the speed of light, as the universe expanded, in order to get ahead of the light itself, millions of times faster in fact, which, of course, according to science, is impossible. Ever get the impression that theoretical physicists are just wasting our money?
It's causing reality to tear apart like used tissue in a pause in there then. What gives with all these terrified creatures tumbling through the rips? It's like naked during the Overwhelmed Mouth Layers convention out there.
We've created a paradox, Polly. A great, big, bulbous warthog of a paradox. The universe can't pay. Was that a cow falling past the window? Or is it Vanessa Feltz?
But wasn't it explained in the last episode that time is a sphere?
Shut it, Polly! Your minuscule brain is about as smooth as Patrick Stewart's head. You've had enough difficulty working out which way round to sit on a toilet, let alone trying to comprehend the complexities of temporal physics.
No, it's easy. According to the narrator, paradoxes simply create alternative timelines.
Do you want a plot for this episode, Polly, or what?
It'll be an improvement on the last one.
Right. We've created a paradox and now the universe is collapsing. So shut up and try to act horrified about the aliens and stuff falling through the gaping holes.
Have you been at the Sprouts again?
Time Lord's Preservers. It's the legendary galaxy-devouring Nargle beast of the Tenhauser Gate. It's torn through the back cloth of the universe. It's at least 3 miles across.
Thanks for that. I was wondering what the scale was.
We're heading straight towards it, Polly. A straight line. It resembles a gigantic ink maggot with a puckered sphincter for a face.
It does have a certain Adrian Charles look about it.
No. Not today, thanks.
Who was that?
Some Richard Cranium trying to sell us Sky Sport. Now, where were we? Oh, yes.
Meanwhile, thousands of light years and several centuries away, on a refurbished houseboat moored off Knot End Jetty during the Victorian period, Josiah Pendlebury, retired inventor, was entertaining Councillor Evadne Shufflebottom and Mrs. Audrey Foghorn, widow of the Presolent District Amateur Crochet and Suffragette Society. Or, rather, he was attempting to entertain them. There's only so much excitement can be had with a selection of French fancies and a wind-up gramophone on a foggy morning in Knot End.
I must say, Professor Pendlebury, you've done up this houseboat something wicked. The potted cannabis plants and the Art Deco design add a much-needed touch of highbrow refinement to this otherwise dump of a backwater. Wouldn't you agree, Audrey?
Oh, definitely, Evadne. It comes up a chuffing treat. Our dear ladies at the Guilds all the gussets and excitement when they come for afternoon tea Wednesday next.
Oh, grey ladies.
None for me, thank you, Professor. I'll be urinating like an overweight docker outside the Fleetwood Arms on a Saturday night if I drink any more. I have a very small bladder, you know, due to catching a rare strain of venereal disease off Mayor Potts at the Great Eccleston Agricultural Show. It was most informative 5 minutes that we spent together behind the jam and preserves tent. He effectively ripped me a new one. I might just indulge in a tiny fondant, though.
Don't overdo it, Audrey. You know how the icing sugar goes straight through you. You'll be shitting through a needle by this evening if you're not careful, with an odour that could curdle cheese.
It's true, Professor Pendlebury. I don't mind admitting that I can produce the most offensive gaffes when occasion demands. Mamma informs me that they stink like a fishwife's crotch rubbed in dog feces.
Oh, Audrey, what the massive hairy bollocks is that?
Birds' teeth and overflowing thunder buckets, Professor. It's crushed Councillor's Chufflebottom. What is that horrible hirsute creature? It reminds me of my late husband Albert's wrinkled John Thomas, only considerably more massive, of course.
It appears to be the hairy bogger Wheaton, Mrs. Foghorn. But if memory serves, that shouldn't be released from its barrel until 1914. Somebody must have created a temporal paradox and torn the fabric of space-time asunder. To the potting shed, Audrey, and no smutting new windows either. We need to get to the bottom of this.
A potting shed? From a houseboat? A 100-foot hairy bobbert crashing through a tear of the clouds I can go along with. I find it difficult to believe that a houseboat would have a potting shed.
Albert Einstein once famously remarked that reality is just an illusion, albeit a persistent one. Mind you, according to all the copy and paste internet memes out there, his quotes include, amongst others, "Please do not ask for creditors a smack in the gob often offends," "It's one small step for man, one giant leap for a gerbil," and "Cowabunga, eat my shorts," which just goes to show that, as delusionary as quantum physicists are, it's nothing in comparison to the lack of intelligence exhibited by the average Facebook user. However, we digress. Deep in the most unfathomable reaches of space, Laura Pendlebury and Polly Jenkins are about to be sucked into the hemorrhoid-like maw of the legendary galaxy-devouring Narwhal beast of the Ten-Hauser Gate.
Let's get this straight. So far we've made 3 separate journeys through the temporal vortex, and in the process we've encountered 3 gigantic, ravenous creatures, all of whom have tried to eat us. 4 if you include Father Cassock. That's a worse record than Albert's coach tours.
We'll worry about the pedantics of the coherent plots, Polly, once we're out of the insalubrious clutches of Ian Cranky here. The situation is hopeless. The twatter is being drawn towards its gnashing gums. We're all going to die horribly unless...
Wait a moment, what's that? There appears to be another telephone box hovering above the Narwhal's arch-stroke head. It looks just like the Twatter's, except that it's fitted with enormous futuristic cannons and what seem to be Bombay doors. Either that or it's got elephantitis of the gonads.
Ah! My cunning plan has worked. That's us from the future, Polly. Once we've rescued ourselves, we'll travel forward to some distant weapons manufacturing planet and upgrade the Twatter, in return for you providing the gastropods of the slime-coated moon of Axon B with sexual favours. Don't look at me like that. It's the closest you're ever going to get to a meaningful relationship.
There's a branch of quantum physics which informs us that if there is nobody around to witness the moon, then the moon wouldn't exist. Reality is relative to the observer. This was famously demonstrated by Erwin Schrödinger, who determined that a cat placed in a box with a decaying atom and a phial of poison was both alive and dead at the same time, until observed. Presumably, the cat had its own opinion on the subject. Back to the plot, such as it is. And the future Laura Pendlebury and Polly Jenkins are heading to the rescue of their previous, but more future than their previous temporal schism opening selves. The following scene might, once again, require some imagination on the part of the listener.
Hold on to your corsets, Polly. Let's give this winner of the John Prescott look-alike contest everything we've got. Unleash the photon cannons.
Hold on while I stagger over to the trigger. Been a bit more legacy to that gastropod orgy.
Tally-ho! Tally-ho! Let's fix Time to release the unreality bomb.
to blow up our previous selves along with the Narwhal beast?
No, not really.
So, we compounded the original temporal paradox then, or perhaps we invented it by accident. Two negatives make a positive, right?
Apparently not. Bugger. That's it for the universe then. It's cracking right down the middle. It resembles Joan Collins having a colonoscopy. Any moment now, the whole lot's going to crash in on itself. There's only one person I know who might be able to sort this out, and he lives a long way away in the dark and hideous realm. That's right, Polly. I'm talking about my great-great-grandfather in Not End.
Reality is not exactly as it seems. Its very existence raises difficult questions such as who created the laws of physics that govern the universe, and why would anyone find Joe Pasquale funny? In order to answer such conundrums, people naively invented God. But this just led to more recursive questions such as who created God then? And if God created man in his own image, what gives with Michael Portillo? The truth about everything is actually much stranger, but far more obvious than it seems. But that'll have to wait for another time, because right at the moment, Laura's great-great-grandfather, Josiah Pendlebury, is witnessing his great-great-granddaughter descend through the clouds above his head in the twatter.
Incredible. It looks as though somebody must have compiled my old schematics and built a bastard for themselves in the future. That's what I call my police box orderly. I invented the name myself and stands for belligerent.
There we go, Polly. Hopefully we can sort this out now.
Laura, does your great-great-grandfather wear leather boots with a sort of splattered blood motif?
May the holy saints preserve us. First a gigantic, hairy boggart lands on Councillor Shufflebottom. Now two hideous amorphous amoebas composed of sweaty white fat have crushed the Professor. What tufted satanic ring piece excreted you two?
You don't work for the Foreign Office, do you?
Polly! The twatter! It's toppling off the side of the boat! That was my great-great-grandfather smeared across the bottom of it. It was difficult to tell, seeing as there were just a massive red splat with two eyeballs in the middle. He didn't look much like his photograph.
And to add to the general malaise, a giant purple octopus that looks remarkably like Father Cassock has now eaten our time machine.
Leaving a mangled turd, accompanied by the sort of smell you normally get in Fleetwood when the trawlers are unloading, or when the Bolton Historical Society are meeting on a Friday night.
Just when Laura and Polly thought that it couldn't get any worse, and trust me, audio adventures really don't get much worse than this, a few miles up Burnt House Lane in the village of Pilling, reality was busy rewriting itself with an extremely scrunchy nib. It's been said that the entire population of Pilling has only two surnames between them, and even less in the way of genes. This isn't completely true, but that's only because the locals can't actually count any higher than one. Occasionally the gene pool is expanded slightly by an outside marriage, usually to a sheep from neighbouring Skronky. It would be fair to say that when Dolly was cloned, Pilling had already owned the patent for several centuries. Now an army of Higgins-Centarians were amassing next to the Pilling pig.
Major Father Brother, the troops are...
Apologies for the interruption. The Pilling Pig was the name for the local steam train, if you're wondering. It's now defunct, of course, but these were Victorian times, remember, and we try our best to remain historically accurate.
Where was I? Oh, yes. Major Father Brother, the troops are ready for inspection.
Excellent, Corporal Grandson, sister. Sucking that paunch, Private Coat Reapers. There's no mud on those wellies, Private H.O.'s. And you, Private Sheep Sniffer, pulling those chins, my God-woman stroke man. There's a pig in the folds. What the hell do you think you're playing at?
Sorry, Major, Brother, Father. My wife, stroke granddaughter, stroke uncle's been sick with a plague, and she usually suckles a little.
Excuse me, but I really must object to this bigoted stereotyping of the good folk of Pilling. I've lived here for the last 3 years, and have only ever witnessed one farmer making love to a sheep. Admittedly, the rest of them generally do it under the cover of darkness rather than in the middle of the street at dinner time, like Mr. Hibson, but nonetheless...
Shut it, you horrible little inbred. Look at the state of you lot. You're a shah, an absolute shah. However, you're the best we can afford at such short notice. Get them aboard the Pilling Pig, Corporal Grandson, sister. We're off to invade Not End. Seriously, that's the best cliffhanger you could come up with. The universe is ending, and we're off to invade Not End. Like anybody cares. We're probably not even in the next episode.
Time and Tide was written in wax crayon by Brian Hughes and starred Juliet Gregson as Laura Pendlebury, Michelle Harris as Polly Jenkins, Carol Porter as Evadne Shufflebottom, Antipodean legend Terry Sedgwick as various Higgins-Centarians, and Frankie Howard as a small patch of dust on the Twatter's console. The music was once again produced by Kevin MacLeod of royaltyfreemusic.com, and the sound effects half-inched en masse from Free SFX Co. UK. No ducks were harmed during the making of this dramatisation, watching. Although a few acting careers might have been badly bruised, don't forget to tune in for the next exciting episode. The Deformed Head of Jonathan Dimbleby.